let's talk about part 2, how to climb to the top. And we're going to look at how they did it. And look at some examples from a variety of parts of life. And we're going to keep hitting on the principle, which is the process you go through. And what is that principle and process? It's you've got to go through to get to. I was in a couple examples just thinking about this yesterday. So let's underline this. How to get to the top. Here we go. Just came out, we had one of our top people in the company for many years, Greg Fitzpatrick, was talking about when he got started. He had, he got excited about doing something with his family, wanted to do great things, but he started as a basketball coach. And he started part-time in financial services. And he liked helping people and he liked that, but he really liked the idea of building an organization, getting his own office. If we use the real estate example, it would be like he didn't mind selling houses, but he would much rather be somebody go from realtor to broker to have his own office and have a team of realtors underneath him. And it was a similar thing in financial services. He liked working with the public, but he was more excited about taking this and doing something big with it. So the guy running things, who was Art Williams, you hear about Art all the time, Art Williams told him, he said, Greg, you're going to have to do something to make that happen. What is it? You're going to have to recruit. In other words, you're going to have to learn how to deal with people, train people. You've got to recruit and train and develop or at least recruit 100 people, train them, and see how many managers you can develop. In other words, can you duplicate yourself? You've got to learn how the technical skills and the people skills so you can duplicate yourself. If you can't do that, you're not going to be able to open an office because it'll just be an office of one person, you. So Greg Fitzpatrick says, okay, to get 100 people, that's going to take forever for me to get it. And so it clicks in his mind, I've got to get some people helping me. So he recruits a bunch of people, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, 20, takes as many as he can to a company convention, crams them all in one room. I forget, Greg, how many you told me, or you told the crowd. But 2 of them came back on fire. They wanted to help him. So he now had gone from just Greg, one guy, to now there was actually 3, him plus 2 others. He worked through those, again recruiting, training himself, but then working through them and their recruiting and training. And in way less than a year, I think he said they had 138 recruits. So he had to go through this process that Art Williams lined up for him. He didn't argue with him. He did debate it. He said, okay, how can I do it? He put his mind, that's what winners do. They put their mind on how can I do it. Immediately said, well, I'm not going to wait around for me to do everything. I'm going to go get help. Put it together. He used the resources he had. Took advantage of the company convention to help him train his people, get them to see things, get them to make the commitment. Had 2 that made the big commitment. Out of 138 people, or together they got not 100, They got 138, and as a result, Greg went to regional vice president, and from regional vice president, he not only has become a multimillionaire, he's got a hierarchy, a coast-to-coast organization of offices. See, he went to get his own office, and it turned out to be much better than that. Coast to coast, and sizable group up in Canada. Huge. He's taken trips all over the world. In fact, they even rent out the entire cruise liners and go on cruises together, he and his organization. Done that for years, just to have fun together and enjoy each other. But it wouldn't have happened. See, he got to this life because he was willing to go through this part. All right, so that's Greg. Now, let's go on. Let's talk about another one who actually was over there speaking at the same meeting. Another one was Omar Oropesa. And Omar started in Miami, young guy. And, started with not a lot of resources. And living with his mom, barely making it through college like a lot of us. And see, Greg had the experience of coaching and dealing, in the leadership. Omar was just a kid out of college. He immediately came into this thing, and so he had to learn everything from scratch. But he got involved in the business. He joined. He learned the sales side of it. And then he said, I want to go big. So he earns his promotion, but he said, I want to be like Greg. In fact, he was inside Greg's organization. He went to a Y2K party Greg threw out at his house. And, hundreds of people there, very successful. Omar said, that's what I want for myself. Now, Omar was not a person who could go out there and, go out to Hollywood and they pick him as a leading man and he's making $20 million in a picture because he's elbowed Tom Cruise out of the way for the leading role. Omar's like the rest of us. He had to work his way up. So he went out and recruited and trained and developed 10 per year himself for 10 years. Steady. See, it was a 10-year process. 10 per year times 10 years. Hopefully you understand it. In other words, a total of 100 plus people. There's a few more than 100, but 100 plus. But see, what happens is it compounds. It adds up. Now he has, and Omar will get all over me if I don't get this right, and I won't, but he's got about 15 people in his organization. Not only is he closing in on $1 million a year income, a fellow who started with absolutely nothing but credit card debt and college education, 15 direct people have emerged in his organization. Well, I don't know if they're directly in his organization, making $100,000 per year. He's closing in, knocking on the door of $1 million a year income. He's living in his dream home in the golf course, got the 2 kids, the gorgeous wife, and how did that happen? For 10 years, he kept his head down, and he went through the process so he could get to this. It doesn't matter how you do it, folks, or what profession you choose. That's the process you got to go through. Now, me, I started. I had to go through. There was nothing, you got to distinguish yourself. You got to prepare. So I went in, one of the few in my family, I guess, behind my cousin Edward. I was the second one to go through college at Georgia Tech. Not a particularly inspirational experience, but I did get the degree and got a job 4 years building houses in North Atlanta, residential construction, built 100 houses, and learned how, that's where I got my real education, learning how to delegate, run crews of people, keeping up with teams of people, keeping them on track, keeping up with the details, getting things done through them, but also making sure that they got done what they were supposed to do by the deadline. Because I had a 18-wheeler showing up with a house full of kids and furniture that had to go somewhere, so we had to be ready by that deadline. Usually they all wanted to move in August, and so, you know, you learn things by going through it. These are things, I went through this to get to this, to start in this business, and in starting in this business, which was a sales and management training thing. I'd never done sales or management training, but I knew that sales was where the big money was made in life, unless you were going to be a professional, unless you were going to be an actor or an athlete or something like that. That's where you made your, most of the people made the big money. So I said, well, I'm going to get into that business. So I spent 4 years learning that, getting the skills up there before we went through our big explosion of going from recruiting 56 people in 1 year in a new expansion up to North Carolina in 1979 to where in the next year we recruited 1,800 people, and we launched the explosion that really set me off to life of financial independence, big income, a lot of fun, a lot of doors opening up. But you have to go, that's what it took, you know, once you make your big breakthrough, it's kind of like where Greg is, where Omar is. Once you open up the door and you get two, it opens up all kind of exciting stuff that you never knew. But you have to go through to get to. And this true, like John Elway. Let me just give you a couple examples. In football, John Elway, he was a superstar all the way up, highly recruited. He gets in the pros. He goes, I think, 14 years, never wins anything. Last 2 years, wins 2 Super Bowls. See, he had to go through a lifetime of grinding, playing, getting knocked out, humiliating, hearing that he wasn't good enough, so that he could stay, you know, and he stayed. He didn't quit. He kept fighting. You know, he was older. He didn't have the resources, but now, forever, he's looked at as Super Bowl champion John Elway. He's got those rings. Another example would be Harrison Ford. You know, Mr. Star Wars, Harrison Ford. What did he have to go through? He was a nobody in Hollywood. He wanted to be an actor, but nobody would pay him any attention. So he made a living doing carpentry. Wasn't necessarily the world's greatest carpenter, but you know, he did odd jobs. And they had him in there, I think, to fix a door for George Lucas in the studio, and then they gave him a little more work. So he met George Lucas. And because of that, he got a tryout. He got an audition for this little art flick they were doing, Star Wars. And guess what? He got the lead, one of the lead roles in Star Wars. And then what that did was open him up to this kind of stage of his life. If you want to get to that stage of life, folks, you got to go through the grinding, grunt work that we all do to prepare us and to open the doors and make the contacts and develop the skills. So once you get there, you can capitalize on it. That's how person after person after person gets to the top. And that's how you're going to get to the top too, if you actually get to the top. Now we got another way of looking at that and how this process works. And I'll tell you that on part 3.